The council chamber of the Drazen coalition reeked of arrogance. Mira Dax stood at the center of the crystalline floor, her boots barely making a sound against the translucent surface. Around her, 7 alien delegates sat on elevated platforms, their bodies ranging from insectoid to gaseous, each representing a species that had conquered their corner of the galaxy long before humanity had even discovered fire. And behind Mira, silent as shadow, stood Vorak. The alien wolf towered at nearly 3 meters tall, his midnight fur rippling with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed with his breathing. His eyes, 6 of them arranged in pairs, glowed amber in the dim light. The delegates had noticed him the moment Mira entered, but their initial wariness had quickly dissolved into something far more insulting: amusement. "A pet," hissed Counselor Threxus, his serpentine body coiling with contempt. "The human brings a pet to a diplomatic summit." Laughter echoed through the chamber, a cacophony of chittering, bubbling, and mechanical wheezing that served as mockery in a dozen different languages. Mira's expression remained unchanged. Her dark eyes swept across the council with the patience of someone who had heard worse. She had been humanity's ambassador to the outer colonies for 3 years now, and she had learned that the galaxy's so-called advanced civilizations often mistook cruelty for sophistication. "Vorak is not a pet," Mira said calmly, her voice carrying through the chamber without need for amplification. "He is my companion." "Semantics," droned Counselor Velcra, a being of pure crystallized thought. "Your species always did have a peculiar obsession with lesser creatures. Dogs, cats, rodents, you elevate animals and pretend they understand you." More laughter. Vorak's ears flattened slightly, but he didn't move. Mira felt the subtle shift in his posture, the tension building in his powerful muscles. She raised her hand slightly, a gesture so small that none of the delegates noticed, and Vorak settled. That was the bond they shared. Not ownership, not domination, understanding. "We did not summon you here to discuss your choice of companions," rumbled High Counselor Zarn, the leader of the Drazen coalition. His species, the Tarkans, were massive quadrupeds with armored hides that made them virtually indestructible. He was the size of a small transport vessel, his 4 eyes gleaming with disdain. "We summoned you to deliver humanity's answer to our ultimatum." Mira nodded slowly. The ultimatum had been clear: submit to Drazen authority, allow coalition forces to occupy Earth's outer colonies, or be classified as hostile and face extermination. It was the same offer they had made to 47 other species. 32 had submitted. 15 had been annihilated. Humanity's answer, Mira said, is no. The chamber fell silent. Then Zarn laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "You refuse? A species barely 3 centuries into space travel refuses the coalition." He leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over Mira. "You have no fleet that can challenge us, no weapons that can penetrate our shields, no allies who would dare stand with you?" "We have something better," Mira replied. "And what is that?" Threxus sneered. "Your pet?" Mira smiled then, a small, knowing expression that made several delegates shift uncomfortably. "We have loyalty. We have bonds forged not through fear or conquest, but through mutual respect. You wouldn't understand that." "None of you would." Zarn rose to his full height, his armor plates grinding together. "Enough of this philosophical nonsense. You will submit or you will—" He didn't finish the sentence. In a blur of motion that defied his massive size, Zarn lunged forward, his intent clear: crush the insolent human and be done with it. The other delegates barely had time to react, but Vorak was faster. The alien wolf moved like lightning given form. One moment he was behind Mira, the next, he was airborne, his jaws wide and glowing with an energy that made the air itself crackle. He collided with Zarn mid-lunge, and the impact sent shockwaves through the chamber. Crystalline pillars shattered. Delegates were thrown from their platforms. Zarn, for all his armor and mass, was driven into the ground with a force that cracked the floor. Vorak's jaws clamped around the High Counselor's throat, not hard enough to kill, but with enough pressure to make the threat undeniable. The wolf's bioluminescent patterns flared bright red, a warning display that every predator species in the galaxy would recognize. Absolute dominance. The chamber was silent save for Zarn's labored breathing and the low, rumbling growl emanating from Vorak's chest. Mira walked forward calmly, stepping over debris until she stood beside the fallen counselor. She looked down at him with the same patient expression she had worn throughout the meeting. "You asked what humanity has," she said softly. "We have partners who choose to stand with us. Vorak isn't my pet, he's my friend. He fights beside me not because I command it, but because he believes in what we stand for. That's something none of your conquered species can say about you." She glanced at the other delegates who were frozen in various states of shock and fear. "Humanity won't submit to the Drazen Coalition. And if you try to make us, you'll discover that we don't fight alone. We fight with bonds you can't break and allies you can't buy." Mira placed her hand on Vorak's shoulder. The wolf held his position for another moment, making sure the message was received, then released Zarn and stepped back. The High Counselor gasped, his armor dented and pride shattered. "This summit is over," Mira declared. She turned and walked toward the exit, Vorak padding silently beside her, his amber eyes never leaving the delegates. As they passed through the doorway, Mira heard Velkra's crystalline voice whisper, "Perhaps we have underestimated them." Outside the chamber in the corridors of the Coalition station, Vorak's pattern shifted to a calm blue. Mira reached up and scratched behind one of his ears, something she'd learned he enjoyed during their first encounter on his homeworld, when she'd offered food instead of weapons, and he'd offered trust instead of violence. "Good boy," she murmured, though the term felt inadequate. Vorak wasn't good because he obeyed. He was good because he understood that some things, loyalty, friendship, honor, were worth fighting for. And as humanity's message spread across the galaxy, carried by those who had witnessed what happened in the council chamber, other species began to wonder, what else might humans be capable of when they weren't alone? The answer they would soon discover was extraordinary.